Rick Heller's here with us now. Hi, Rick. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's the question. What happens if I get it? And I say I get it. I'm a person that has normal, I don't have any problems with, susceptibility to diseases, and my immunizations are all up to date. What happens if I get the coronavirus here in the United States?
Well, we don't know, and I can't say exactly. But, there's 4 phases of this thing. You go through, the respiratory, cold flu kind of symptoms. You get this immune response, and this is all downhill. This is not good stuff. So a lot of people have very mild symptoms, and they get over it. Children miraculously don't succumb to it, and I'm not saying all children, but many.
Right. How long does it take? I mean, this disease is pretty new. That goes back to maybe December, November. How long does it take to really understand what we're dealing with here? And will this disease, let me go another one. How long will this disease last? Will it mutate and keep mutating? Or can, like Trump at one point tweeted, once it gets warm outside, it's going to be all fine. Do we see a natural period where this thing just wanes?
Well, I have to agree with the president, as unusual as that may seem for me, except it's not really warmth. It's moisture. And moisture we think of in terms of humidity, but we never do get it in our brains right because outdoor humidity is just weird. But indoor humidity is real. I'm in Dallas, Texas. It's 25% relative humidity indoors. You in California, probably about 15. If you look at Hubei, Wuhan, you will see a bunch of giant dips. When it gets dry indoors, we're talking about 20% relative humidity, things spread. So sick people walk in, and they can spread to people that they haven't even been in the room with, depending on which virus we're talking about.
All right. So we don't know that much about this. It's not that different than the flu. You mentioned something to me when we spoke earlier today about this thing may have a lower mortality rate because we just don't know how many people have it, right?
Exactly. So, if there are 10 times as many people that have it as what the epidemiologists are saying are absolute positives, then the mortality rate's going to be lower.
What is the mortality rate for the flu?
The flu's about 0.2%, which, is a lot per 100,000. It's huge right now. The flu is by far a bad year for flu. I mean, it's got 250,000 to 500,000 people in the hospital with flu. There's one strain that the B that was not in the vaccine. Don't understand it. It just sort of appeared. So the flu is much bigger than this. I think we're just worried about what this could become.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. So, Nancy Pelosi today went down and went to the Chinatown. And it was today, yeah. And she was walking around just to kind of show people, to try to relieve their fears, because a big part of this is what it does to people. And I was talking about before you got on the phone about, if we called the flu virus, it would scare people more, because we're calling this coronavirus, right? I mean, some of this is obviously wash your hands. You can still go to the mall, you can still go to a basketball game, but just be smart, right?
Two things that we're not doing. One is we're not telling people and we're not reminding people to hydrate in the winter. Winter is much drier than summer. And you give it all up at night in your dry, bedroom when you sleep, and you just go on the scale in the morning on a dry evening, and it's usually going to be cooler, but not always. I mean, it can be balmy outside and very dry. And you get on the scale the next morning and you're 1.5 pounds low. That's all water from your lungs.
Really? I should sleep more then if I want to lose weight, is what you're saying. Nikki, am I missing anything here that you want to ask? No?
Well, no, I mean, it's just, I think that people just need to keep it in mind that this is just starting out. And it seems scary, but I'm like what you were just mentioning, Chip. Wash your hands, do certain things, and you'll lower the possibility of getting it. If somebody has this, sneezes on their hands, touches like a handrail, how long will that virus be alive on that handrail?
So there's I've seen 6 hours. I've seen, all sorts of numbers. The path that we see is to be significant is called aerosolization. It just means that, just the breathing that we do in these small particles when we're just standing here talking or sitting or reading, those particles are very small. If you're sick and you give off those particles, the person who inhales that, those particles, the small ones, will go much deeper. They're much more virulent. And so that's sort of the path that we're seeing. And that's what's happening in Wuhan as we see it. That's what happened in Tokyo, or at least offshore in the cruise liner, and not happening in Singapore, not happening in Australia, because Australia is in the summer. Now, what happens is all of a sudden we flip seasons, and so it starts to subside, and because of our attention to it and our surveillance, as well as seasonal. And then Australia starts to get it, and so they're fighting it. And so the idea is that we're going to tamp this thing down, and I'm actually kind of strongly positive about it because of the attention that it's getting. So while we shouldn't panic, we should definitely increase surveillance. Your fever point, and you'll see this in the Wall Street Journal, they've been talking about this for months before coronavirus. Your fever, your normal temperature is 97.8 Fahrenheit, not 98.6.
Yeah, we've gotten cooler.
Orally.
Yeah,
they say we've gotten cooler, but it's always been that way, as far as I can tell, orally. And so that's an interesting point. But what happens is that if you're 62 years old or older, this is according to one of the hospital thermometer companies, your fever at 98.6. So be careful. Your surveillance should not be 100.4 like CDC says. You go to bed, you get over this thing, and you hydrate.
Okay. To recap, in other words, if I were to get the coronavirus, it would be pretty much the same as if I got the flu as we understand it right now.
It's assuming you're healthy and it doesn't affect you in the way it's affected some, but it's still I don't want to say rare, but it's a 99% survivable, maybe 98% survivable thing. Now, those aren't great odds, but, they're better than SARS. That was 20%.
Was it really? That had a 80% fatality rate? SARS did?
I'm sorry, the opposite. It was 20% fatality.
Well, that's okay. All right, 20%. Okay. Well, so I didn't realize. So the flu is just at 0.2%, right? And this, okay. And
but it's big. It's big. It's huge. We're talking about death rates of 50,000 in the United States right now, and that's just this season in the U.S.
Well, Doc, I appreciate it. I know that this is a, what's your website again? Because I know people, last time we had you on.
So our blogs and all that information is Wello Inc., WELLOINC, like HelloWelloInc.com. We're in Dallas, Texas, and we make a device that is very strict on surveillance and fever, non-touch, self-service.
Cool breeze. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Again, that is Rick Heller, infectious disease expert, WelloInc.com.